This week in Motor Week, an exclusive visit behind the scenes of the Morgan factory. How Volvo are now putting Mitsubishi technology under the bonnet. Where the A-Class will stand in the automotive history books of the future. And Ian Royal tests a V6 diesel that's as smooth as silk.
It's the middle of October, it's just above freezing, and we're staying in a castle on the northern coast of Scotland. And that's a pretty strange place for Alfa Romeo to be launching their new GTV and Spider soft top options. Now, if these cars weren't sexy enough already, they've just been given a potent injection of the mechanical version of Viagra. There's a scorching new V6 3-litre engine in the GTV, and for this model, the Spider, they've tweaked and tuned the engine to give it even more power. Let's just give it a try. Just take a look at that. No, not that. This. Because they've given the Spider a little bit of a makeover. To start with, we've got new alloy wheels. There's kick plates under the door bearing the Alfa Romeo logo, and the front and rear bumpers are colour-coded. Even the Alfa Romeo badge at the front is now surrounded with chrome. It's bound to turn heads. If only there was somebody around to have a look. Now, the Italians certainly know a thing or two about designing cars. And that's not only the exterior, because the interior of this new Spider is just absolutely superb. There's a fantastic new control panel here in the centre which houses the automatic climate control that is now standard across the range. It's really smart. There's a chrome finish to the centre dials. It all looks really, really flash. So what's the price of all this Italian exotica? Well, this one's a snip at just £80, but let's face it, you're not going to get very far. On the other hand, the Spider, £23,500, is a really smart car. But the one that the big boys really want is the GTV. We'll be doing a programme on this in the future, so watch out for it. As you can see, there's a whole range of colours to choose from. The Spider's hardtop sister car, the GTV, has now got a 3-litre V6 engine under the bonnet. And it's a shame Alfa Romeo couldn't fit the same engine into the Spider too, but it was considered not suitable for the UK market. However, both the Spider and the GTV get the same upgraded 2-litre twin-spark engine, with some changes similar to the one fitted in the award-winning 156. The result is a more powerful and flexible engine pumping out 155 brake horsepower. The 4-cylinder unit races to 60 miles per hour in 8.4 seconds, and now has a top speed of 131 miles an hour. Around town it'll return around 21 miles per gallon, and if you really can resist the temptation to put your foot down, it's claimed it can top 40 miles per gallon in the extra urban cycle. The reason why you need to get the pizza in to celebrate, and why every Alfa Romeo Spider owner is celebrating, is because of what they put under the bonnet. This revised 2-litre unit has got more power, and it makes the Spider absolutely fly. It's fantastic fun. Well, that's just about it. Two breathtaking new cars from Alfa Romeo. And as we're here in Scotland, we thought it was only right that we should pipe this car in the traditional manner. Take it away, Alistair.
When you look back through the history of the British motor industry, well, we've always been renowned for our sports cars, but over the last 20 years, we've also become renowned for destroying our sports car industry. Look at the great names that have gone, the MGs, the Austin Healeys, the Jensens, the Triumphs. But one name that proves for all that small is beautiful is Morgan. Founded in 1909, the company is as strong today as it's ever been. In 1968, Morgan surprised the motor industry by persuading Rover to allow them to use the then brand new light alloy V8 engine, 3.5 litre, transformed the performance of the Morgan Plus 8 as it became, a real fire-eating sports car. And that car continues substantially changed to this day. Morgan bodies are still built out of ash, as they always were, but how can a car built today pass modern crash legislation with bodywork like this? Charles Morgan.
To go back into America, we've had to fit full airbag system, a depowered system to the car. And obviously while we were engineering that, we made quite a few changes for safety reasons. And we were very, very pleased to achieve one of the lowest injury criteria on a passenger dummy ever recorded at Mara.
Just trying to work out why that should be. I mean,
well,
I
know. I mean, that's right. The engineers were gobsmacked. The reason we've got a very long bonnet, you know, it's an enormously long area of crush zone, you know, which you need really, unless you've got some clever engineering. We've also got a separate chassis, and Land Rover's any car with a separate chassis does remarkably well in full frontal crash testing. But believe it or not, they put a little bit down to the ash frame, and it acts exactly like a Dunlop Max-Ply tennis racket or a sort of simple little modelling hammer handle, and it actually takes away some of the energy of the crash through the fibres of the wood. So it does a gigantic shimmy in the high-speed camera pictures, and you can see it happening. You know, nothing breaks, the door still opens and closes, but it does take a little bit of the energy. So what I think is it says, you know, we should be coach building for many years to come.
Charles, the motor industry changing fast around you with foreign ownership of a lot of your component suppliers. How is that affecting Morgan?
Well, we watch with absolute fascination. I mean, perhaps eventually we'll become the only British-owned motor firm left. But having said all that, I think we've got to work with these guys very closely, and we've got to obviously have other things for them than perhaps volume and lots of orders. So our heritage helps enormously, because obviously they do have a little bit of respect for the fact that we've been going nearly 100 years now. And you know, I think the basic thing is to make sure that you know, we don't do exactly what they're doing. So we do actually try and do something just a little bit different.
But you're not thinking of putting the BMW V8 in just yet?
Well, that would be saying, wouldn't it? Anything is possible in Morgan.
You've got enough room in that chassis for anything. When the cars come off the production line at most manufacturers, they go onto the rolling road for a brief checkover before they're dispatched to the showrooms. Not at Morgan. Every car has trade plates attached and sets off for a 10-mile thorough drive around the hills of Malvern. So, Charles, tell me, how many cars are Morgan making today?
Well, Chris, last year we produced 500, and of those sort of half were exported. We're going back into America with the Plus 8, and so we hope to build more like about 600, 650 in the coming year.
How have manufacturing practices changed at the factory here? I mean, there's still an enormous amount of handwork in the car.
Well, they haven't changed that much. I mean, we are known for our coach building, and the customer buys the car because it is a coach-built car, and what that means is it obviously has a separate chassis, it has an ash frame, it's panelled in aluminium. Having said that, the materials that they're using have got better and better and better. Even the wood is actually better now than it used to be. And obviously the processes that we use, you know, like powder coating or painting with water-based paint has improved enormously. But no, we've cut out a lot of wastage. It's interesting. I mean, now the car, on average, from start to finish, takes 20 days, whereas a year ago it took 38. And that's just purely cutting out the waiting time and the wasted time in the process. And, you know, we've cut our work in progress down from, by half, really, from 100 cars down to 50 cars actually being part built at any one time.
There's been quite a lot of sort of changes to Morgan over the last few years. The car looks the same, but tell me about the car under the skin. It's changed quite substantially.
Well, yes, it's now got a 4.6 litre aluminium V8 engine. That used to be 3.9. So I suppose the major change really is an awful lot more torque. The cockpit's much longer now. It's easier to get in and out of. You know, partly this was because people are getting bigger. You know, the milk's better or something, and a lot of our German owners couldn't fit in, so we had to create an awful lot more space in the cockpit. We achieved that with the same wheelbase, the same chassis.
So what's the future of this little Malvern company? Well, the order book is as full as ever, and they're shortly going into the States, where thousands of Americans will no doubt want a Morgan too. So the future is assured. From being the biggest family-owned British motor company, who knows, they could soon be the biggest British-owned motor company.
After the break, Chris switches from a car with a feel of the past to one with its sights in the future, the Mercedes A-Class.
Diesel. The very word is anathema to me. I've never been a big fan of diesel cars, and despite their popularity in the past 10 years or so, serious doubts have now been raised about just how environmentally friendly diesel really is. Put your foot down hard in any diesel car and plumes of smoke come out of the rear. But some people actually like diesels for their ease of maintenance and in some instances excellent fuel economy. So if you have to buy a diesel car, if your company insists you have a diesel as your company car, which one should you go for? Well, Audi and Volkswagen have been past masters at producing excellent engines, and they've excelled themselves this time round with a V6 turbo diesel 2.5. Yes, a V6, and we think that's a first. Under the bonnet here is an engine that punches out 150 brake horsepower, and that's considerably up on the 1.9 turbo diesel, which only produces 110 brake horsepower. Now, I drove the A6 at its launch in summer 1997, was very impressed with it. Great style, superb prices, and an excellent choice of engines. And now this 2.5 V6 turbo diesel completes the A6 lineup. So could I actually ever be tempted to buy a diesel car? Well, if one car is going to do it, surely it has to be this one, a V6 diesel. Now immediately you sit in and turn the engine on, you get that familiar diesel clatter. There's no getting away from that. But some excellent sound deadening has helped to reduce the noise considerably. Now, rather interestingly, Audi have chosen to put a 6-speed gearbox into this car, and I've yet to discover under normal driving conditions why you actually need 6 gears. Performance, though, is very good. There's a slight lag at low revs, but once the turbo kicks in, it's a very responsive engine with plenty of oomph. The 6-speed box is close ratio, and that makes for a lot of unnecessary gear changes, and personally, I choose the automatic option. Handling is more set towards a Grand Tourer than a sports car, and as a motorway cruiser, it eats up the miles with ease. There's plenty of space in the cabin and extremely comfortable seats. The whole design is pretty much perfect, with a few snazzy touches: an armrest, these cup holders, and damped coat hooks. The new V6 TDi A6 comes in 2 spec levels, Standard and SE, but even standard cars get a very high level of equipment. Prices are £26,344 or £28,309 for the SE model. Despite the advance of very efficient petrol engines now, these Audi diesels produce excellent fuel consumption figures. This V6 will do an average of 41 to the gallon under the old methodology, and at a constant 56 miles per hour, this will do 64 to the gallon, and that should give this car a range of between 700 and 800 miles to the tank. Now, one great extra on this car is the acoustic parking system. What is an acoustic parking system, you ask? Well, by a series of sensors along the rear bumper, it determines how close you are to an obstacle behind you. Now, for instance, there's a car parked fairly close behind me. I'm going to reverse right up to the back of it. So I engage reverse, which beeps at me to tell me it's working, and gently start to reverse towards it. It will start to beep, there it goes. The faster it beeps, the closer you're getting to the car behind you, until you get one long beep, and that's as far as you go. So, would I buy this new A6 diesel? Well, if someone threatened me with serious physical violence if I didn't, then yes, absolutely. There's no doubt it's smoother, more refined than the four-cylinder versions. And as you already know, I'm a big fan of the A6 anyway. But if you have to buy a diesel car, you won't be disappointed in this. But why not try out the petrol versions first? They're smooth and they offer excellent fuel economy. Diesels have lost a bit of their shine.
When I first drove the A-Class prototype a couple of years ago in Stuttgart, German engineers were calling it revolutionary. But then engineers have applied the revolutionary label to their products ever since the dawn of the motor industry. So let's look back through the history books at those cars that really have changed the face of motoring. Henry Ford's Model T, the first car to be built on a moving production line and bringing mobility to America's masses. The Volkswagen Beetle, air-cooled, flat-4 engine, rear-mounted, independent suspension, unitary body again when chassis were all the rage, and flat-out motoring for the German masses on their new autobahns. And from Italy came the problem. How do you get Mama, Papa and their children into the smallest possible and the most economical package? The answer there, Fiat's inimitable 500. And finally, Alex Issigonis's marvel, the Mini, drawn literally on the back of a fag packet, with its transverse engine, gearbox in the sump. Now for me, a seminal car, and I think one of the best looking shapes of all time, is the Citroën Traction Avant. Just consider a monocoque body with no chassis, independent front suspension, torsion bars all round. It's low, fast, sleek, excellent steering and road holding. And that in 1934. That's what I call a landmark. Will the A-Class be in that league? Are we seeing the start of a design revolution where all engines disappear under the floorboards and all chassis become sandwich construction? Personally, I don't think so. Engineers will only adopt this sort of layout if they can afford to charge Mercedes prices. I don't think it'll be a failure, but like the old Hillman Imp, it'll be a car that engineers admire but don't imitate.
Okay, less of the culture. It's time for your physics lesson. Come over here. Right, won't keep you long. No chance of detention after this one. But if you cast your mind back to the 70s when flares were big and your sideburns were probably even bigger, cars used carburettors to get the fuel-air mixture into the cylinder. In the 80s that changed. It became multi-point fuel injection, where the process took place in the intake manifold. So things were getting a lot better, better economy, better performance and better emissions. In the 90s we're looking to improve that even further, and Mitsubishi have come along with the direct injection engine. It doesn't look that much different, but underneath it's very revolutionary. This is the first engine that actually mixes the petrol and air in the cylinder before combustion, so you've got even better emissions, even better power and even better economy. It's good news, it's from Mitsubishi, but until now it's only been available in the Mitsubishi Charisma, which lacks charisma to say the least. It's always been an engine crying out for a good home, but has it found it now under the bonnet of this Volvo? Now the S40 itself hasn't been without its problems. When it was first launched we complained about the engines were too noisy, the ride wasn't very good and the general build quality wasn't that special either. But Volvo have worked away and they're gradually putting things right. This is the S40 saloon version, but Volvo also do a V40, V for versatile, estate. In true Volvo fashion, that really is truly versatile, very easy to use, good load capacity, and it's good looking, as this saloon is as well. As we come around the back of the car, we have a look at this little badge. The little eye shows you that there's something special under the bonnet. Volvo can't use the GDI name, so that's all you have there to show you that there's something special under the bonnet. Having driven V40s with the 2 litre and 1.8 16 valve engines, I can say that this is a much better engine in the car. Not only does it emit fewer toxins, but it's more economical, and it's also more pleasant to drive. They've got a Mitsubishi gearbox in here, which is smooth and efficient, and the engine itself is smoother and freer revving. And when you're cruising at motorway speeds, there's less of the harshness that's associated with 1.8 and 2 litre 16 valve motors. Volvo are past masters at creating a superb driving environment. All the controls here are very easy and nicely laid out, and they have a good feel to them. My only complaint about the cabin really is this, what looks like fake elephant hide on the dashboard there. It reflects in the windscreen and can make visibility a little bit difficult towards the lower end of the windscreen there. The driving position is first class. The wheel here adjusts up and down, and the seat has plenty of adjustment. Not only that, but these are without doubt some of the finest seats you'll find in any car, in any class. On the motorway, on long runs, you'll get out as refreshed as you would do in, say, a Mercedes S-Class. And for a fraction of the price too. There's plenty of space in the back too, more so than the likes of the Ford Mondeo or Vauxhall Vectra, even BMW's 3 Series or the Audi A4. So back passengers there, they won't be complaining. Mitsubishi are only letting Volvo have 2,500 of these cars in the UK, so Volvo will only be selling it in one specification in SE trim. So it's going to be nicely equipped with air conditioning, leather seats and the like, but you're going to have to pay around £17,000 for that.
Land Rover told us that one of the most significant developments on the new Discovery is its ACE. And no, they weren't criticising the old Discovery, well, they wouldn't, would they? But one snipe often levelled at the outgoing model was that it pitched and rolls through corners, a corollary of its excellent off-road ability. The engineer's aim was to provide car-like handling without sacrificing the off-road ability Land Rover owners have come to expect. The answer? ACE, or Active Cornering Enhancement. Lateral acceleration is detected by body-mounted sensors, and the information fed to the system computer. The computer assesses the situation and decides whether you're flying along your favourite A-road or going completely mad off-road. An engine-mounted pump provides the pressure required for roll control modules, which counteracts body roll and stiffens suspension movement. And having ACE rather than conventional anti-roll bars allows for lower rate springs, giving maximum articulation off-road and passenger rise comfort. The system senses what's needed. Well, Motor Week has driven the Discovery, and we can report that it works incredibly well. In fact, you could say it was, well, ace.